Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, where our job is to help you build visibility, professional credibility, and connection with your ideal client by putting the human at the center of innovative marketing, so you can build and strengthen an engaging, enduring relationship with your ideal clients. I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm honored that you're here with me. If you haven't joined our wonderful marketing transformation community yet, go to innovabiz.co and collect your free gift as well. Do subscribe to the show and also leave a review because it helps others find us. Let's get into today's masterclass on this InnovaBuzz podcast.
And if you marry that with a little bit of the final ingredient, which is personality, I think is the one thing we all can mix that no one can replicate. That gives you that way to stand out. And I think that's really important today too, because personality is what defines the era of the influencer. That is what makes influencers influencers.
Welcome back. I hope you've had an awesome week so far. If you haven't yet listened to my recent conversations with improv coach Jay Suko and with author of Paid to Think, David Goldsmith, then do go listen in, but only after you've listened to today's conversation. I'm really excited to have on the InnovaBuzz podcast as my guest today, Yaro Starak. He's an online entrepreneur earning a full-time income from the internet since 2004. Yaro is the co-founder of Blog Mastermind and also of InboxDone. He's a serial entrepreneur, an angel investor, and he travels the world while running his businesses. Yaro is also host of the Yaro Podcast. In our discussion today, Yaro talked to me about building content around your big idea with both personality and an emotional connection to your audience. He explained how we can use our experiences to share stories and help others. And he's a firm believer in seeing email as a way to just talk to people and to build relationships. Without further ado, then, let's fly into the hive and get the buzz from Yaro Starak. Hi, I'm your host Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm really excited to welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast today, all the way from Montreal in Canada, Yaro Starak, who's co-founder of InboxDone and Blog Mastermind. Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, Yaro. It's a real privilege to have you as my guest.
Thanks for having me, Jürgen. Happy to be here.
Gideon Shelwick, who was our guest on episode 315 of the InnovaBuzz podcast, suggested that we get you on and have a conversation with you. So big hello to Gideon.
Oh, I can't refer to him now when I recommend someone. Okay.
Yes, so the circular one is probably not the best way to do it.
No.
Now, you started a blog and a podcast back in 2005, and that kind of evolved into the business that you have now. So I'm really keen to dig more into that. I think I was listening to podcasts in 2005, but I had no idea that I would end up starting one, and it didn't occur to me at the time to actually dig in and figure out how to do it. Your current online course, Blog Mastermind, I think you started with 400 students. I'm not sure where you're at with right now, but that's obviously grown quite a lot. And according to one of your profiles, you've got thousands of people that have signed up for courses over the years, bought ebooks, joined the Laptop Lifestyle Academy, which is something I know you're passionate about, traveling the world and working from anywhere. So I'm really looking forward to digging into all of that. Now, one of the things I'd like to start with is when you kind of started on this journey, writing a blog and doing some work on the internet in the early days, did it ever occur to you to abandon that and actually go to the normal routines that perhaps are expected by society of, starting a job with a big company after your studies?
Well, I mean, that was the fear. That was the thing I was running away from. So I did think about it. It was always, I guess, the fallback if you can't make a business work or some kind of freelancing side hustle. And when you're 18, because I started online at 18, I had so little confidence in myself to run a business that there was always the idea of, yeah, I'll have a job. And I did. I had a part-time or casual jobs all the way up until about 24, 25 years old, as most people do, while I built my early business projects on the side, sometimes while at work, I should say, as well, back in the day. So, but no, it was the thing I was running away from. I'd call it a nightmare in some ways to have to go to work. So I was trying to avoid it.
Hmm. So in those early days, you mentioned that you didn't really have the confidence that perhaps you do. Well, I'm sure you do today. How did you navigate, or how did you keep yourself moving forward in all the ups and downs that inevitably would have come?
That's probably the hardest part, to be honest. I think people get caught up so much in the technical side, the strategic side, getting an audience or creating a product. But I think the real challenge is your mindset. So especially at the start, I have to say I was a mess, to be absolutely honest, from probably the ages of 18 to 25. I had some income come in, and then I doubt myself and I compare myself to friends who were starting businesses. Nothing was full time. Like, I didn't have a full time income until probably about 25. I finally had a business start to stabilize and become consistent. That was actually before blogging. I had an online essay editing company that I ran called Better Edit. But before then, man, I would, like a lot of people, I'd get caught up in a new opportunity. But for example, one minute you could do affiliate marketing. The next minute I wanted to run an internet cafe. At one point, I actually had an English school with a physical office in Brisbane, actually. Spring Hill area, which absolutely crashed and burned. So there was a lot of emotional turmoil. I almost wanted to partner with a friend just to have people around me too, because back then there wasn't this sort of online connection community. It's kind of like now with COVID. Imagine that, but you haven't got the interface online to connect with people. It was so new that you could talk in forums and bulletin boards, write emails, but there was no Zoom, no YouTube, no Facebook, none of that was around. So that was the hard part. But I think sort of complete the circle in terms of getting through that and building confidence. It was a lot of coming through with experiences first as like a backbone to start giving me confidence. So, even though my very first ever website was a card game website and it never became a full-time income, but I learned how to get traffic. I learned how to source product at wholesale. I learned how to sell something online, take payments, run a community, run a magazine online. And that gave me kind of the grounding framework for what eventually led to blogging and podcasting, and other content strategies. So there's a lot of connection with my projects over the years. I like to look at compounding and following a success ladder, building on each phase to get more confident to do bigger things each time. And for me, that was definitely the case, but there was a lot of nights lying up awake in bed, staring at the ceiling going, I don't know what I'm going to do. I feel lost. I feel lonely. Not making much money, all those usual problems I think entrepreneurs go through at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. But you did say to yourself, I'm learning how to drive traffic. I'm learning how to build community. I'm learning how to set up online payment systems. So you recognize that, hey, these things were not just for today's need, but would serve you going forward in other situations.
At the time, I don't think I saw the future, to be absolutely honest. The connections weren't there. There's two things happened here. One was that practical experience, but I have to give credit to books as well. There was a lot of simple books, the Think and Grow Rich. Everyone talks about that book a lot. Entrepreneurial books, just sort of reading about the foundation of whatever it was, eBay. I read the story of Cadbury chocolates. Napster at the time was exploding in popularity, so I eventually read about that book. And then over time, Richard Branson, story of Google, all the foundation companies. And that kind of helped a little bit too, just to sort of hear the background story of other entrepreneurs. And they talked about mindset a lot. A lot of entrepreneurs were like this. They talked about the need for grit, for just moving towards a goal, regardless of the day-to-day ups and downs. So I kind of try to tap into other people's experiences as well as a kind of a reminder. And I'll be honest too, I was kind of a naturally pessimistic person. So I read a book called Learned Optimism by Martin Seligman in the sort of psychology world that kind of helped me realize the need to actually work on positive interpretations of the world as a way to also kind of boost that mindset and realize to succeed, regardless of what it was, business, dating, health, all those sorts of things, I needed to get the mind going right as well. And that's where practicing positivity, as well as the nuts and bolts of just learning new skills to grow a business or whatever it was. But those two things in tandem, mindset and the practical aspect, were critical, I think, to carry me through the downsides too. Because I had credit card fraud hit one of my businesses. That English school, didn't make any money, and I was spending like $1,400 a month on rent. So there was a lot of negative cash flow kind of periods through that were pretty scary.
Yeah, what I particularly like about that, I mean, a lot of people spend a lot of time and money learning the technical skills, but forget about the mindset part of it. So you realized very early that you had to do some work on your own internal mindset, internal beliefs, as well as gaining the skills that would help you do the things that you wanted to do.
Oh, for sure.
All right. Now, in those early days, then blogging was quite new, I suppose. How did you kind of build a community or an audience around the blog in those early days? You talked a little bit about community and bulletin boards and the need to connect to people. But how did you actually build a community or a following around the blog that you started?
Yeah, well, I knew about content. So, having run this card game magazine / e-commerce store, I seen a community grow just off the back of articles. We wrote articles about this card game. When I started blogging, I was already 7 years into entrepreneurship. So it made sense to dive into that topic as a topic I really enjoyed. Plus, I was running my card game business. I was running this essay editing business. So I had stories to share. And to me, that was the important thing. I added stories from experiences, the good and the bad. Here's how I made money. Here's how I didn't make money. So I started sharing, those stories in a blog format. And I knew about, SEO from both those previous businesses. The search engine optimization came into it big time with blogging. And I guess I could connect the dots if I published a lot of articles on a blog. And I was seeing other bloggers do so. I would start building the traffic organically, which did happen. A bit of blind faith. I wasn't, thinking this is my new business when I started it. There was definitely not that kind of confidence in the blog doing that. Same with podcasting. So new when I started it. It was like, let's just throw some content out there and see who shows up. And it hasn't changed in a lot of ways. We're doing it right now. So many people are YouTubing, social media sharing, blogging still. Whatever it is, sharing content, and they're growing following. And it's the same kind of thing. You put some ideas out there, you get better as you go along. You learn about optimization for things like search engines. And then you learn about marketing as well. So I kind of just continued to study, like I learned about internet marketing. I learned about email marketing as a result of blogging, which was so important for upskilling my business, making more money, getting more customers, because as I went from blogging to selling a course to selling ebooks, it was the blog plus the email list that actually resulted in the big income increase in the business growth. So just learning about that from other internet marketers, I took some courses. It all started kind of to come together. And then, if you help people enough, the community kind of comes about. And I'll be honest too, the early days of blogging was a golden era for community growth, because you had people leaving comments. Like, you go back to some of my early blog posts, there's hundreds of comments, and now people don't comment on blogs. They instead, go to social media and talk to each other there. So it's just changed a bit. The discussions move somewhere else, whether it's Reddit or Twitter or Facebook. But that's fine. It's still a community, and the principles haven't changed. But it doesn't matter where you grow a community, you foster it through content, by being supportive, by thought leadership, by sharing expertise. So that's what I started doing in 2005. And to be honest, I haven't stopped. I'm still running that blog. I'm still sharing the same kind of ideas. The answer I just gave you would probably be the same answer I would have given someone on a podcast in 2005. So, it hasn't really changed that much. Just the platforms have become more, there's way more of them. As simple as that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that's a really key point. The fundamentals are still pretty much the same, and it's all about delivering valuable information in a way that people can find and people can consume, and then also being really helpful in the community and fostering the engagement and the conversations. One of the things you mentioned, though, is that there's a lot more platforms out there now, and there's, you look at Facebook in particular. I think I'm dieting from Facebook. I've sort of removed myself from it pretty much because there's just so much noise on there now, and so much distraction if you go in there. So I know some of the communities I'm in where I do like to watch the conversation going on. I do like to go in there and contribute, and I certainly learn from the other people in that community. But it's always this conflict of I'm going to be bombarded with other noise if I spend some time in that community. And if I then turn that around from the point of view of the person running the community, the person that's driving that, the person that wants to build that community, how do those people stand out from all that noise? How do they provide a forum where somebody like me who says I'd rather be off Facebook because of all the noise, still finds it valuable to go there and comfortable to go there, or not comfortable, but non-distracting or non-threatening in terms of wasting my time.
Yeah, worthwhile, getting an ROI from time there too. Yeah, it is tough. I think the fact that they're designed to grab your attention and just sit there and scroll is something to be aware of. For starters, remember you're a user of the platform as well as a person trying to market on the platform, and that's the danger. You go to the market and then you start scrolling away in other people's content. So I've always told the people I coach, because they start whatever it is, they're an expert at curing knee pain, or they've got some kind of diet, or a skill set in trading penny stocks, whatever it is, they have a skill set and they want to go out there and build an audience. I've always said to people, start with a platform that you feel natively comfortable and even excited to use, and build one solid following there, ignoring all the others. Now, you can repurpose your content on the other platforms, but where you're going to actually spend time really building something is on one of them. So if you like video, you're going to do YouTube. It's simple as that. It's the most audience is there. It's a search engine for content. You can be a specialist there and grow a following and grow an email list, most importantly. If you're a person who likes writing, then I'm going to say, start a blog for sure as your focus point. But then you're going to need to write in other places too, whether it's guest posting on other people's blogs or magazine style sites, news sites, whatever it is. You're going to need to do that to grow your audience, but focus on writing, because writing is your thing. If podcasting is what you love to do, then, make sure you're maintaining your own podcast, but get out there and do podcast exchanges, in the sense that you go on another person's show, or you have an opportunity to be the expert and not always be the person doing, the interview, because you want to get in front of both audiences. Like I am on your show as a guest, but I run my own podcast too. So both sides of the coin, plus other options for audio. Now I'm seeing live casting as an option as well. So you can kind of have your own radio show. There's a few platforms for that. So there's ways to use any content format to reach an audience. But I think you have to marry that with what I would call fantastic positioning, having a solid big idea. As I teach my students, like, a big idea is the kind of cornerstone concept that you represent as a solution to a problem. So, when I go out there, I don't say I just teach people how to make money blogging. I might have said that 15 years ago when there just weren't many people teaching how to make blogging. But nowadays it's too generalist. So I kind of bring it down to very specific goals. It's how to make money blogging, plus using email marketing, and then only doing it 2 hours a day with the goal of $10,000 a month. So I kind of start to bring it into a more tangible goal. I focus more on the lifestyle. You make it more specific. Obviously, a lot of it ties into the case studies you have too. Your positioning and your big idea is represented through the people you've helped in the past. So whenever I share a story of, like, Mitch Wilson, my first ever success story student who now lives in Hawaii, who writes about sports and sports betting. I share that story, and it's like, here's proof of the philosophy of blogging that I teach, which is very different from back in the day when it was like, you teach blogging, you could be running the next magazine blog, like TechCrunch or Mashable or whatever it was. That was kind of like the goal, a big magazine style blog. And then they fragmented. And if you marry that with a little bit of the final ingredient, which is personality, I think is the one thing we all can mix that no one can replicate. That gives you that way to stand out. And I think that's really important today too, because personality is what defines the era of the influencer. That is what makes influencers, how they look, how they talk, how they appear, all those personality factors. Not saying everyone has to do that. I am certainly not the kind of person who's, jumping around on TikTok as a way to grow my audience. It's not my thing, but you can find the way to show your personality. And I know, like, I'm spending more time on Twitter now than I ever have in the past, because like you, I was like, Facebook is something, it's not useful anymore the way it used to be. It's become so all over the place in subject matter and a lot of kind of, I don't know, it's distracting. Where Twitter, I'm finding, because it's a little bit shorter form content, the audience there are maybe more business orientated in my case. It's just a better target demographic. Plus I'm getting news very quickly there. It just suits what I'm doing at the moment. But hey, if I was trying to reach a millennial audience with a direct-to-consumer brand, I'd probably be on Instagram and Twitter now as the main places to spend my time. So you got to find the format. You got to mix in your core positioning and your big idea, and you got to throw in your personality. And that's how you stand out. That's how you can really build a following.
Yeah, and that's great. I love that. There's so many different bits and pieces that come together, which is, what makes us unique as human beings, because there are so many different experiences we've had, different personalities, different preferences, different views, different beliefs. And I also like the idea of being really focused on who the audience is, and that will then influence where you reach out to them and how you connect.
For sure.
Yeah. Now, so you talked about the imposter syndrome earlier. So what's your advice to people that kind of feel that? I mean, I was running an event the other day to celebrate our 350th episode and brought together a bunch of my podcasters, and I shared with them, I was sort of very vulnerable and open to start with. And I said, when I come on a show like this, and I have this little voice on my shoulder that says, hey, who are you to talk to this famous person or this really successful person on your show, and why should they spend time with you? And I said, that's my little imposter syndrome. And now I'm here in this event with, I think I had about 35 of my podcast guests there together in one spot. And I said, now that's magnified by 35. So what's your advice to people that are, so I deal with it, but other people kind of don't take action because of those little voices. So what's your advice to them?
I felt imposter syndrome the most the time when I was about to launch the first product that was created by me. It was the first time I was charging money for something I created. So before then, I guess I still felt it, but because everything I was giving away was for free, it was like, whatever, it doesn't matter as much. I'm not asking you to give me money for what I'm doing. So the day, or I guess the months really, that I decided I wanted to sell something online, put my name on it, write basically a course, that was the first version of Blog Mastermind, was a day where I was like, it was a bit of a, how do I put this? I almost didn't do it because I felt that people wouldn't buy what I was going to sell. Simple as that, right? I was going to charge a lot of money for a course too. And and it's important to preface this. I was not a person who ever saw themselves as a teacher, an expert, a thought leader, a writer, a content creator, anything like that. I saw myself maybe entrepreneurial, but it was like, I'll own the business, like, and it could be, an internet cafe. It's not like you need to be a thought expert for that sort of thing. So when I decided to do a course and to deal with this feeling of no one's going to buy it because who am I? And even worse, no one's going to actually benefit from it if they do buy it, which probably the worst thing is they buy it and they ask for a refund. I was like, okay, what I'm going to do, and this is for me was a simple hack. I completely lowered my expectations to basically almost nothing. So I said, I'm not targeting an income from this, like a certain amount of dollars. I'm not targeting a certain number of customers, students buying this program. What I'm going to target is the experience I go through to create and release and launch a product. So that gave me a goal that wasn't really going to be impacted whether someone liked or didn't like it or how many people bought it. Even if people bought it and refunded and told me it was terrible, that was the experience I get to go through to tell me what's wrong. And I would try and be as practical and logical and as unemotional as I could to determine simply what's working and what's not. Now, thankfully, as you said earlier in the podcast, I did have 400 people join that very first course that I sold with my name attached to it. And a few of them went on to, start a business and make money, and you kind of validated what I was teaching. But if that didn't happen, I might be telling you a different story here. I might be saying that, I crashed and burned. I changed business models completely. I never became a teacher and a coach whatsoever, because at the end of the day, I realized that wasn't for me. At least I would have learned that. And it would have been a logical reason why. I would have found out, okay, my teaching methodology is not sound, or my marketing methodology didn't work. I would have seen the holes in my system. I think that would have been so much more valuable to get compared to not doing it. Like, to me, that's like, as you said, with your experience, even if you get on the podcast and have all these people listening to you and you get laughed at, you kind of, why. And then that's like the worst thing that happened to you. So the next time you do it, you're like, well, I can't do any worse than everyone laughing at me. So away you go, So I think that kind of exposure therapy is very, very helpful. I'm not saying it's not scary. I'm not saying there's all kinds of negative emotions and thoughts to go with it. That's why it kind of ties back into that learned optimism and the mindset that I was telling you about before. If I didn't add that to it, so like managing expectations, staying positive, not anchoring myself to a specific financial result, that really kind of softened my landing regardless of how it went. Now then, when you get a great result, it's suddenly, oh my God, I'm a genius. And you're like, you got to watch the other way, because suddenly you think you're the best.
Yeah. So, overconfident.
Yeah.
But there's so much to like about that in terms of, there's first of all the learning experience, treating everything as a learning experience, and being curious about, well, this happened, so why did that happen, and what can I learn from that? And if it's something that's undesirable that happened, what can I change to get a different outcome? But the second thing also is, and I often say this when people do lead magnets and things, they say, oh, that lead magnet isn't converting, or so I'm not going to give it away anymore, or, I'm going to stop posting free stuff because people just don't buy my things. And I say, well, is it a gift? Because if it's a gift, you shouldn't expect anything in return. And if you don't expect anything in return, then whatever you get in return is like, oh, a bonus, right?
There's so much entitlement online. It's crazy what people think they're owed just because they exist and they requested something for free. So, but that's just the nature of the internet. So yes, that's a good attitude for your side, I think, to remind yourself that, hey, you're the one helping all these people. It's their choice to show up and be helped if they want to or not.
All right. Now, you talked a little bit on a couple of points about email and the email list. So how important is an email list today, in today's day and age, when we all get bombarded, and that's going to lead into the next discussion, when we all get bombarded with thousands of emails, and probably 999 of them are really just wasting our time. How important is it for an entrepreneur, a business owner, a coach to have an email list and to grow their community?
Yeah. Well, I don't have the stats for 2020 in front of me, but I know the last time I looked at the stats, that email was still the single most responded to medium on the planet in terms of, people taking an action. In direct response marketing, we call it a response, a conversion, someone clicking a link in an email. True, there might be more raw numbers of people watching YouTube videos, or, maybe on a Facebook post that goes viral or something like that. But in terms of an actual person opening up an email, clicking it, and going to your site, it's hard to beat email. The data just continually shows that. And even though it's kind of dropping still, it's still the most powerful for that. Now, granted, there's a lot of email going out too. Every platform is sending email. Every marketer, every individual is sending email. Every social platform is sending email. So this kind of ties into what we talked about before regarding personality, having a big idea. The emails that get opened by the right people are because those right people have connected to you on an emotional level. They see you as a friend. They see you as a person they should pay attention to because you provide value. You can teach them something. Maybe you can entertain them as well. I always remember some advice I heard about email marketing from the very early days for me was you need to see email as a way to make friends. And I was like, okay, that's really easy. I can adopt that strategy. I'm just talking to a friend in my emails, and that creates the connection. So when they see your name pop into their inbox, it's going to stand out and not be deleted straight away. I've lost track of the number of times someone has said, Yaro, I've been on your email list for 6 years, 7 years, 3 years, whatever it is, and I haven't bought anything, but finally today was the day, I bought your product. And that's the relationship that just stayed connected. It might ebb and flow. They might not open every email, but they do. In fact, today, even as I'm talking to you, I was doing a discovery call for an InboxDone client, which is my current main focus business, with providing email services for them, as in we reply to emails for people. And they were a potential customer, and I asked them, how do they find out about what we do, InboxDone? And she said, I've been a subscriber to your email list for a long time, and I saw you send an email that you were hiring people for your company. I don't know why I opened it. I'm not looking for a job, but I opened it. I saw that you have this company, InboxDone. I'm drowning in email. So I booked the call straight away, to see if you guys can provide help. And she signed up. So it's like all tied into this email list that I started on a blog all the way back in 2006 was my first sort of current email list. And, it's obviously changed. It's got people over the years who have gone, some have come back. You've got people who subscribed last week who might buy a product as well. They're brand new, but it's still by far the most powerful direct response tool I have. And every successful company since I started it has in some way been born from that email list. And I should say that email list was born from the blog. So the blog and the email list are such important tools in my story.
So how do you keep that email list vibrant? How do you keep bringing new people in, and how do you keep those that are in there? How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them from unsubscribing?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, accept that some people will unsubscribe. So let's pretend that doesn't happen. There's a few things. I've always been a content guy. So search engine optimization, I have blog posts that rank in Google to this day. I might have written them. I wrote one about the 80-20 rule in 2006, and it still brings in traffic to my site from Google search. I've written so many pieces of content that might get 5 visitors a day or 10 visitors a day. So it's not a lot, but collectively, when you spend time, it starts to add up. So there's that. That's been like the most consistent, reliable, stable source of traffic for me. But that's not the only one. I've got some affiliates who will, they have some kind of traffic source. Like one of my affiliates right now is big on YouTube. He sends a lot of subscribers to my list because he promotes my course through affiliate links. Then there's been times where I've done paid advertising too. So yeah, there's a launch campaign I'm running. I will do some Facebook ads and some Instagram ads. More recently for InboxDone, I've been doing Twitter ads and Google search ads as well. So all of that, grows your list, but it's dynamic, it's organic, it's not stable. It doesn't mean you always have the same subscribers. In fact, I have so fewer subscribers today than I did 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I had like 100,000 people on the list. Now I've got 25,000. But to be frank, 2,000 of them actually engage with my content, which probably hasn't changed that much over the years. It's always been very much an 80-20 rule. You got your true fans, your 2,000 people who open and read and are more likely to buy. Then you've got that 1% who actually do buy from you. And that's how it's always been. But all those strategies are options. And as I said earlier, it's about finding the methodology for marketing that you are excited to do, where you can reach your audience. And that could be written, could be video, could be audio. You just have to get in front of other people and tell them you exist. Getting on podcast is a great thing to do. That's one of the other reasons why I'm here, not just to talk to you here again, but to talk about my own projects. So
yeah, or getting on other people's platforms. I heard somebody describe it as, which I think is a nice snapshot of, guest podcasting, guest blogging, going on Facebook Lives, presenting webinars to other people's audience. All of those things are getting on somebody else's platform. Speaking at an event is the classic one, but of course that's a little difficult these days at the moment.
Virtual events, but yes.
Yeah, that's right. So the bringing people into your email list from all those sources, what's the mechanism that you have? So is there a specific one call to action? Do you have different calls to action? Is there other ways you use to bring people from whatever it is that's grabbed their attention, whether it's a blog post, an ad, or the affiliate promotions? To what's the mechanism to take them from there into the list?
Yeah, so two sides of this. So I didn't mention before too, there's the actual emails I write, but in terms of the caption or capture, the sign up process, that's changed. Like if you ask me this question each year over the last 10 years, there'd be a different mechanism. There is always something on my blog. So there's always a header opt-in. There's usually a footer opt-in. There's usually some kind of scrolling slide in or pop up or something like that. And you can go to my blog anytime and you'll see these things. They're pretty obvious. Big pictures of me. I'm usually giving away, as you said earlier, a lead magnet. Often it's a free workshop, could be a downloadable handout. I have some email courses. I made the decision 2012 that I basically restarted my coaching business. So I had spent the prior 7 years selling the first version of my course, another course with Gideon Shawick, who we mentioned earlier. But then I was like, those courses all need to be closed down. I need to make new versions. At that time, I was like, okay, I need to test a theory that I've always wanted to test, which is, can I set up evergreen marketing funnels where I bring people from the blog into some kind of education experience through email and they buy my products, and it's not launch based, doesn't require me to do much after it's been created. That was the plan. So first time I tested that theory, and that's just sales funnel marketing for people in direct response. They should be well and truly familiar with that. But I'd never done with my blog, and I was on launch-based marketing to that point. So with this one, I was like, okay, I've written a new ebook. I was on mindset actually and productivity, and I wrote some blog posts about mindset and productivity. Each one of those blog posts had an opt-in to go through a free email course on mindset and productivity. And in that free email course was a promotion for the ebook. And in fact, it was like a proper, like a launch, but on evergreen. Like I'd offer a discount for 1 week. It came with bonuses. And once I set it up, it took me a good 6 months to write the ebook, write the emails, write the blog posts. But then I stopped and a sale came through for this ebook without me having to do anything. And I was like, hey, the theory works. That was passive income as the dream always is for everyone. So a lot of work to set up a passive income stream, but it was a test and proof of concept. And then I went to town. So I wanted to basically create a product and an email sequence for every single thing I felt I could teach people. So I did how to buy and sell websites. And I won't go through everything because I'd be talking forever about my own products. But basically, it all went through a series of years where all these products would sell. Some would sell with launches, but then I'd set them on evergreen. And to this day, as I talk to you, I have a workshop that was recorded live, but now is delivered on recording. And people will go to my blog, sign up for the workshop. You can go through it right now, and you can join my course, Blog Mastermind. And someone joined a day ago, and I wasn't part of any of that. I'm still coaching. I still jump on a call once a month with my students, and I interact in the forums and so forth. But the marketing and sales process was set up years ago. It just gets tweaked. Things stop working, so we try something new. But it's always an opt-in form of some kind. And of course, landing pages as well. Like affiliates generally like to send to a landing page. So for example, that workshop, it's called the Platform Launch Plan Workshop. So if you go to platformlaunchplan.com, you'll see a landing page to sign up for it. But most people actually sign up for it on a header or a footer opt-in on my blog. And that's not unique to me. Like all my students who have email lists all do the same thing: landing pages, footers, headers, and not just us. I'm sure you'll see probably yourself, Jürgen, and a lot of other people out there have the same thing to sign up for email lists. So.
Yeah. All right. I mean, it's fascinating. I was doing some research for a guest that's coming up in a couple of episodes, I think, and I might be preempting this, but her view was the evergreen thing doesn't work. So I'm really keen to explore that with her. So not having done that though, I'm curious because I guess my view is the evergreen one is like how you've described. You know, once you've done the work, it's a lot less work then to, as long as you tweak and refine things and update things as new developments come on board or as the environment might change. But then being present and doing the live coaching, live calls is, I like that model much better, and I think it's a better lifestyle thing. And there's no such thing as passive income, let's be honest about it, but that's a recurring income type thing where you actually leverage the amount of work you do in the launch over and over, rather than each launch requires the same amount of work again. What's your view on, because it sounds like you've gone through the launch stuff and transition to the evergreen?
Yeah, I've done both for sure, and I love both. I think they're both good. Yeah, the argument against evergreen makes a lot of sense, because if you don't have a source of evergreen new subscribers, it doesn't work. Like that's an obvious caveat here. You can't just switch an evergreen campaign on. You'll push through your current audience. Once they're all through it, that's it. There's nobody else to go through an evergreen campaign. So I think a lot of people don't realize the amount of effort that's required to keep a consistent stream of new eyeballs, new human beings going through your content, benefiting from it. They have to be the right kind of people. And to me, as I said earlier, my blog posts ranking in Google. So Google is a major anchor point for the effectiveness of anything I do that's evergreen. Without that, and it's ebbed and flowed too. Like Google has liked me and then stopped liking me, and reduced my traffic and increased my traffic, like everyone. So it's not a reliable for the rest of your life scenario. And every evergreen campaign I've done has slowly died if I don't do things to bring new people into it. So yeah, it's not, I would never call it set and forget passive income. That would be a lie. And I think launching is especially good when you're at the phase in your entrepreneur lifestyle that's something you're excited to do. I've got a coaching member named Tian who is in color weaving. She coaches people how to color weave, which is like a craft. And she does these month-long Facebook challenges that launches her course. And she's about to do, if things go as planned, her first six-figure launch campaign. Now that's all live. She sends emails, of course. She still does, like the fundamentals hasn't changed. She has to grow her list through her blogging and her content. For the first time, she's doing Facebook ads and also bought an ad in an email newsletter. And she gets a result on those launches that will be so much bigger than she would get doing that evergreen. But she will, like most people, I've been in this long enough, get launch fatigue. She'll get tired of doing that. She won't want to do it. And every person who's successful for a long enough time will feel the same. And they might do all kinds of things. They might switch to a different business model. Like I have some friends who were great at content and coaching and then switched to software because they were tired of teaching and creating that kind of content. They wanted to just grow a software, or SaaS as it's called. Some do, as I'm doing right now, a service-based kind of agency model kind of business. So I have a business that I do not deliver the service and I market it. So it's the same story. I have the same way of getting the customer base, but my co-founder, Claire, runs the business. We have contractors. It's a living, breathing entity without me needing to be there. And we don't launch it. It's a completely different business model. It's high value recurring income. We have a very small client base, but that's just the way that kind of business works. Very different to 400 coaching students spending $50 a month. So it's an evolution, I think, is the short answer. And all these methods for marketing can work if the ingredients are there. But I think it's an experience that, and I've seen it so many times, maybe you have too, Jürgen, that people will go from brand new to internet marketing Suddenly they're getting coaching clients. Then they realize coaching is a lot of time. They get a bit burnt out of one-to-one time. They switch to a group model. Group model works well for a while, but they realize they always have to be somewhere. It's too much of their own time. I know, I'll sell an online course. They switch to an online course model. They launch the online course, big launch, affiliates, a lot of work, some kind of live campaign. They do that for a couple of years and go, I'm tired of doing these launches to sell this. Then they hear about Evergreen and switch to Evergreen marketing and, do that. And then that sort of maybe stops working, or they just get tired of being known as a coach and a teacher. I get that too. And then they want to move on to software, something maybe bigger. That's a business that's sellable. That's not about their personal brand. So it's the beauty of the internet, though. You can do all these things and go through this entire evolution.
Yeah, there's all the options available. All right. Well, you've mentioned a couple of times InboxDone, so let's talk a little bit about that. I know we're getting on a little in time, but let's briefly touch on that business. Tell us what it's about, and I think you've given us a good snapshot of what's attracted you to doing software. Well, it's not quite software as a service, is it? It's a done for you service, but it's a different business model to the other things we've talked about in detail so far. So you've given us a good why as to why you chose to go down that path. So tell us a little bit about the service itself.
Yeah, it's called InboxDone, so InboxDone.com. And, it connects the dots with everything we talked about. Like, I had a service business early days with an essay editing company, and it's a similar business model where I had contractors delivering a high value service. This time around, though, it was something I had on the back burner as an idea because I went through this experience, in fact, with the essay editing company, where it was a great business, total Tim Ferriss lifestyle 4-hour work week business. I didn't have to work much, but I had to check my email because all the jobs would come through an email. And that was frustrating because it was like a stress point in my life. I had to always check to see if there was something urgent that had to be dealt with. So I hired my first ever email assistant, essentially a person who stepped in and did that role of email. And that's when that business became very hands-off for me. There's still a few things I had to do, but the day-to-day stress point was gone, which was lovely. And then, of course, from that point forward, when I switched to blogging and selling courses and being a coach, same story, email pretty much from day one. I always had a human being doing the customer support email, chasing up potential customers, chasing up failed payments, dealing with potential refund requests, people emailing, where do I find this resource? Dealing with all the spam, newsletters, everything that comes in the inbox nowadays. And that was huge. And then finally, a few years ago now, about 4 years ago, I was at a networking event with some other entrepreneurs in Vancouver, and someone was saying how much time they spend on email, like 2 hours in the morning before they start their workday, 2 hours at night when they get home. And I turned to this person and said, I only actually go into my business email once a month to deal with the emails. And they looked at me like, how is once a month realistic for email? It's just not possible. So that was kind of like okay, it's time to start this business, because clearly for some reason, although entrepreneurs love to outsource everything else, whether it's technical support, doing web design, web graphics, content creation, everyone loves to outsource, but for some reason they don't get help with the email. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, at the time, I already had a team doing my email customer support, and one of them, Claire, she just had the leadership quality that I was looking for in a co-founder, and had the skill set of being able to manage emails. So we said, let's do a test. Let's offer this service to a couple of people, hopefully within my own audience. So again, email list comes into it. I sent an email, said, listen, we're looking for a couple of beta testers for a new business, a new service. We're going to handle your email for you. And the same people who do my email will do your email, basically. And Claire did that. We took on 2 clients, and to cut a long story short, 4 years later, the business is multiple 6 figures. We've got some very interesting clients, from restaurant owners to venture capitalists, obviously, the internet marketing world as well, a rabbi. So it's all over the place in terms of the client base, but everyone has email. Everyone has too many messages coming at them in social media, which is another thing we're kind of handling. And it's something I really enjoy promoting, because I've always been about kind of lifestyle freedom. My coaching is all about that. I wanted to be an entrepreneur, not for billionaire success story, but for I can travel around the world, eat whatever I want, and have that freedom, not be in charge of 1,000 employees, but to just have that great lifestyle freedom. So to offer that unlocking of time that we can help clients with by taking email and taking social media messaging off their plate, it's a very satisfying thing to do. So which leads me to a question for you, Jürgen. Do you do your own email? Are you in charge of your own inbox?
Not really. So I have a bit of a hybrid model. So I've got somebody who sorts my email for me into, here's the stuff that is reading, here's the stuff that is payment information, here's the stuff that you probably should respond to. So that typically gets me down to about 5 or 6 emails a day that I need to deal with personally, and the rest of it is all over the shop. But I do then go in and look at those different sections. So I've got a little bit of a hybrid thing. So I'm thinking of that. I mean, it's interesting.
So you used to say you're way better than probably the average.
Yeah. The interesting thing for me is, and you triggered this thought when you alluded to doing social media as well in that, is, on the one hand, I'm all about relationships and, I talk about making marketing more human again. And I think one of the things that the internet and particularly automation has brought about is people kind of abdicate the relationships and the connections and what you talked about earlier as being one of the really important pillars. They abdicate that to the mechanics or transactions of those automations. And yet with email, they're kind of so attached to it because of the personal connection that perhaps it still has. I don't know how you see that.
Yeah, I think that's why, and people are surprised by this when I say we're not software, we're a human being that will actually step in and do your email. And then oh, okay, that kind of, I want the human touch. I don't want to risk that the wrong answer is being sent or an email is being filed away where I'll never see it when it was super important, like a potential client or my boss or something like that. So, but you're quite right. There's still that. And we had one person, it shocked me, but one person started the process with us and then said, you know what? I emotionally cannot let go of my email. I have to see it every day. Otherwise, I feel like I'm not involved with my business enough. Now, that surprised me because I was like, it's like an addiction, and maybe I shouldn't be surprised because if social media is an addiction, email is probably the first ever social media addiction we had. And case in point, Justin Brook came to us as our third customer, I think, and he's a well-known internet marketer, really good at Facebook ad and pay-per-click ads. And he said to us, I don't want to ever go into my inbox again. So can you build a system for that? But he also said, I don't want to lose touch with my industry, and I want to make sure I, get the most important information straight away. And that's exactly what we then, built a system for. So collecting the newsletter content into an external document, so he doesn't have to wade through emails to read each individual newsletter, sending a Slack message instantly if an emergency type situation is he needs to address. But everything else, he had the opposite mindset. I don't want to see everything going from inbox because A, it doesn't move my business forward. B, it creates busy work. Or as Claire, my co-founder, likes to say, it creates a to-do list that other people decide.
I like that. I like that philosophy for email. Somebody else's to-do list for you.
Exactly. And it happens. It happens to me too. I mean, I get addicted to email because I get those emails that say you made money. So I had that sort of give me another hit. I'd be swiping with another hit. So I had to let go a little bit of that part of it. But I think you can find a sweet spot for your own personality where, okay, hand over 80%. Yeah, you can go in there and look at your email once a day if it makes you feel good. Just don't feel like you have to be the one to reply to everything or
don't let it control you.
Yeah.
No, so I've got a bit of a secret, and you probably got a bunch of emails giving you information about the podcast and booking you into the podcast and then reminding you and so on. Well, none of those came from me directly. Some of them were automation. Some of them, now I wrote some of them, the automation ones I wrote. Some of them actually have videos of me on video as well. But some of them I didn't write. And it's my podcast manager. she's written emails, and she communicates with people and keeps them kind of reminded of when things are happening and keeps them reminded after the event. And when I first suggested, why don't you, because we've got this long waiting list, and I said, well, maybe we need to nurture people just to let them know that they're still on the list, we haven't forgotten, and so on. Could you compose some emails and we'll kind of build a little campaign where we can nurture them? And she came back to me with some emails, and I thought, wow, that is a really nice email. My email, if I had have written that, would not have been that nice and would not have been that sort of genuine and heartfelt. So, okay, send that. You just do that. And now,
exactly.
Now the only time I see that, occasionally I stumble upon one because she sends them from my email. So, occasionally somebody will reply that I see the reply, and they'll say, oh, that was a really nice email, or I like the way you do this. And then I'll read down and, I don't remember sending that email. Yeah, but I thought, it's a nice email. So you can actually let go. You can get people who understand your philosophy, who understand your personality, who, you can train them on, this is our philosophy, this is the way we communicate with people, and they can do it.
And as you experienced, potentially better than you.
Exactly, yeah.
Sometimes it's a bit of a knock to the ego, and but hopefully it's like, well, why didn't I do this sooner? Because I've left money on the table because someone else could write better emails to chase up potential customers. We have with InboxDone a team that does different things with email, as you can imagine, for our own business. So I'm always like impressed now, because Claire spent a number of years building this, so I'll do a call with a potential customer, and then Jeff steps in, who's our inbox manager, who will follow up with a series of emails to try and convince them to become a customer. Once they become a customer, it turns over to Carly, who's the onboarding manager, who will then take over the emails to onboard the person to their inbox manager. Then, of course, they start working with the inbox manager, and they're a customer. And I was like, man, I really like knowing as a business owner that is in place, that there's specialists doing each of those roles. So they're going to get better and better at it over time. I don't have to worry about it. I have like a support team that's going to grow my business, and I just do this one function. And I think that, to me, and that's something that is lovely about the non-personal brand business too. Like, as much as I've benefited from being a coach, and I hate using the word influencer, but a thought leader, a person who goes out there and teaches people to do things, I know how good that is for growing a business and selling your own product, but it's not something that exists without you. So you can only automate that so far. And that's why I think people do tend to eventually gravitate to software or selling services or selling physical products, eventually, to remove themselves from the equation more, because they want to create a sellable asset one day, or they want to scale to a point that doesn't require them for the scaling anymore, which is very hard to do as a personal brand business. Nothing against it. It's been my greatest source of income. It's fueled that freedom. I wouldn't be here talking to you without it, but it's not the only business model.
That's right, particularly the scaling part. And you talked earlier about time for money, and I think that's probably our most precious resource for everyone today, time. All right, well, this has been fabulous, Yaro. I'm really enjoying the conversation, but I'm watching the time a little bit, and we've already nearly hit the hour mark. So I think it's a good point to move on to the Buzz, which is our innovation round, and it's designed to help our audience, who are primarily innovators and leaders in their field, with some tips from your experience. So I've got 5 questions. Hopefully you'll give us an answer that will inspire the listener to go and do something awesome today as a result.
I'm up for it. I'll try and be brief. That's the hard part for me.
Okay. What's the number one thing you think anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
Look for problems that are not solved well. Simple answer.
Yeah, I love that. And it's a different approach, isn't it? People have, I've got this fabulous idea, but not having tested it or not having matched it to a problem. And I think your inbox service is certainly a really good example of that in practice.
Very specialized, going for that problem.
All right. And what's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
Ask questions, I think, is surprisingly, it's a bit of a counterintuitive answer, but asking questions gives me the feedback to then go away and, see where the problems are and learn about that.
So asking other people questions or asking yourself questions as well?
Other people first, obviously, because the problems exist outside you, but then asking yourself as well. But for innovation identification, it's definitely asking externally.
All right, great. Do you have a favorite resource you use most often?
I thought about this one. I was like, can I answer this? But my favorite resource is other people plus processes. I know it's not like a tool or a software or something like that, but it is by far the greatest leverage I've ever gotten. No matter what business I've had, is talented, skillful people who are building and following processes.
Yeah, I love those sort of answers because they're actually much more applicable to all businesses. It's not here's this software that does X, and if I don't need X, then it's not really helpful to me. Yeah, this is something that, having good systems in place, good processes, and then people that run them. And like the example you gave earlier, people that are specialists in, parts of the process, and people that are always learning and improving the process as well as their own expertise. That's magic.
Yes.
All right. Now, what's the best way to keep a client on track?
Well, I'm sure you've had this answer before, but deadlines are definitely step one. But I'll add another concept, constraint identification. So obviously deadlines, I think everyone knows what that is. You got to get something done by a certain time frame. But I think if you look at what is stopping something getting done, which is identifying a constraint, usually it's in a process or in some way you're trying to solve a problem. There's a resource missing. That helps you to see where you need to focus your time and your energy, put resources to solving. And I'm a big fan of the theory of constraints, which I learned from a gentleman named Richard Seffrin, and it's one of the best concepts, which comes actually from production manufacturing. When you look at a production line, a system is only as strong as its weakest point. So if you want to get scale, you have to go where is its weakest and expand capacity there, and look for the next weakest point, increase capacity there. But if you're not at the right constraint, you're not going to do a significant change, because you're basically trying to make something grow and it's constrained somewhere else in the system. So to make this simpler, take my blogging business. I could have spent a ton of time creating products, a ton of time writing content, building a team. But if there are no new subscribers to that email list, and if it's not growing, if I don't have some kind of marketing platform, that is the biggest constraint for making sales. So I have to go there and, okay, how do I get more people to join my email list is the constraint I need to solve now. So I think that's an important thing.
All right. That's great. Yeah. I think it's a good way to focus on what are the things that could potentially go wrong and deserve our attention. And then, you talked earlier about the 80-20 rule. So 20%, I guess 20% of the things that are in there can derail 80% or something. I don't know if that's the right way to apply the 80-20 rule there.
It's funny you mention it, but I usually put the 80-20 rule with the theory of constraints, kind of like what you just said. So you're looking for the one thing you can change that's going to give you an 80% impact.
Yeah. Great. Love it. All right. And we've touched on this a little bit. What's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
Well, I think you know my answer to this one, but personality plus specialization is my short version of that answer.
Yeah. And we've talked quite a bit about that, so I won't dig any more into that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thanks, Yaro. This has been fabulous. Now, where can people find out more about you, find out more about InboxDone, get a hold of your podcast, and maybe even get in touch and say thanks for what you shared today?
So InboxDone.com, obviously for anyone struggling with email or social media messaging or both, that's the place to go. And for everything else about me personally, the coaching side, the podcasting side, yaro.blog, yaro.blog is the site. Great.
We'll have links in the show notes to those places, and yaro.blog is quite easy to remember. All right. So do you have some parting advice for our listener today?
We've shared so many different ideas with this one, Jürgen. I'm not sure where to zero in on here. I think it depends where you're at. I feel like knowing your audience, based on how you introduced me to it, I don't think there's going to be a case of mindset issues to get started or get through imposter syndrome. It's more a case of scale. So I think, let's lean into that. And I would suggest the listener look at what they do during the day and ask themselves, where is my constraint, or what is something in this list of activities that I really am not the right person to do? Even if it's an easy task, it might be better done by someone else just to free up that time. And even if it's a complex task, like a task that requires a lot of insider knowledge, can that knowledge be transferred or acquired from another human being to remove you from that task? And I think one of the biggest stopping points or constraint to scale is figuring out what you can do or build to get leverage, and then making sure that you're not the one stopping that from being created. So looking at your day is a great way to ask yourself that, because you probably know what could give you leverage, but you're not getting to doing it because you're doing everything else in the task that's not giving you leverage. So that's my parting words. Yeah, I love that. And I'm certainly guilty of that. I keep looking at my list and saying this, and I identify the things that are most important during the day that are going to move the needle. And I keep looking at that list and saying, well, hang on, I've got all these other things that I could get distracted by now, but let's not do that. Like social media scrolling. That's not on the list at all. Okay, good. But occasionally I do get distracted, so I have to fess up to that as well. All right. Well, finally, who else should I get on the podcast and why? Well, I can't recommend Gideon Chalwick now, so I'm gonna throw my co-founder Claire. She's got such a different skill set and mindset to me. Not a person who likes to be on the stage, like as a personal brand. Loves to talk and teach, but she's a system builder and a person who builds and builds teams, hires people. So not something I'm very good at, hence we're good co-founders. And she knows how to systematize anything, I guess is the simplest way to put it. So I'm going to recommend her and she doesn't do many interviews. So if you ever wanted to grab her, let me know. All right. Well, we'll get an introduction to Claire from you and have her on the show. I think that's a couple of really good things to explore there in some more detail. So thanks for that. And thanks so much for sharing your time and insights with us so generously today, Yaro. I've really enjoyed this, really enjoyed exploring your journey and digging into the philosophies of how you've built the business and why email marketing is still important, why blogging is still important, why getting on other people's platforms is important, and how you've then scaled that and your journey to building a service-based business from all the other businesses that you've built up. So thanks for that. All the best, and let's stay in touch. Thanks, Jürgen. Love being here, and good luck everyone listening in.
I hope you enjoyed that engaging and informative conversation with Yaro and took something away from his episode. My big takeaway was Yaro's philosophy of treating everything as a learning experience and how that influences his mindset and behavior in his business. I'd love to know what you took away from Yaro's episode. Leave a comment below the blog post, which you can find at innovabiz.co/Yaro Starak. That is YAROSTARAK. All lowercase, all one word, innovabiz.co/Yaro Starak. You'll also find contact information there for getting in touch with Yaro, as well as links to his website, the InboxDone website, his social media pages, and the other resources we spoke about in the conversation today. If you like this episode, please share it with 2 other people that it might help. Tag me in that share and I'll reach out to you with a special surprise. Yaro suggested that we have a conversation with Claire Giovino, the other co-founder of InboxDone, on a future InnovaBuzz podcast episode. So Claire, keep an eye on your inbox for an invitation from us to the InnovaBuzz podcast, courtesy of Yaro Starak. Tune in again to the next episodes of the InnovaBuzz podcast, where we've got yet more fantastic guests lined up, including Steve Brown, author of The Golden Toilet, and Lisa Johnson, Freedom and Success Coach. Thanks for listening to this episode. Make sure you subscribe to the show to be reminded of new episodes. It's free to subscribe. Leave a review if you like. Even if you don't like me, I'm okay with that. I'm asking you to leave a review because it helps other people find this show. Go to InnovaBuzz.co to join our marketing transformation community and access a free gift my team and I made for you. It's the Marketing Master Mini Class. We want to give you everything you need to transform your marketing into a human-centered, relationship-focused growth engine. Until next time, I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz. Remember, be awesome and keep innovating.